Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful day. And hopefully, wherever it is that you're joining us from around the world, you are having a fantastic day. Thank you, as always, for all your likes, your shares, your support. Thank you so much to all our new followers and all our new YouTube subscribers. And if you haven't done so yet, please jump over to YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So again, as always, thank you so much for your support. As you know, we do what we do for you to bring you some amazing conversations and bring you some amazing guests. And I'm not going to lie, today I'm really excited because I know that this is somebody that I have followed for a very long time. Somebody whose creative process and creativity and the stuff that they share and put out is very inspiring and has definitely played a role in what I do and in how I do things. So I'm just really excited to welcome to the show Manuel Herrera. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me. This will be a lot of fun getting to share it. I almost want to just ask you questions just because we haven't sat and really chatted for, an extended amount of time. So yeah, man, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can definitely, like I said, it's a real laid back show. So if you have a question, hey, no worries. That's what we're here for, to learn
Cool.
from one another. But again, like I mentioned, I'm really excited to have you here. And for all our audience members who, let's say, may not be connected with you yet or may not be familiar with your work yet, can you give us a little brief introduction and what your context is within the education space?
Yeah, yeah. I guess if I kind of had to maybe tagline this or something, I'm an illustrator, I'm an educator, and I'm fortunate enough that people want to listen to me. So occasionally I get to go speak. So I kind of take those three things and that's kind of who I am. I've been in education 23 years, 23, 24 years now. And started off classroom teacher and not to get too much detail, but start off classroom teacher and kind of worked my way through education. I thought I wanted to be a principal for a little bit and, did that for a year and assistant principal. And then got into the ed tech world and have kind of been in there ever since. So I've been an ed tech coordinator, ed tech coach, getting teachers to use technology tools. And that has grown into a variety of opportunities for me. And really is the reason why I do what I do today. So, yeah, that's kind of that's probably the quickest I could do. But happy to share all the details of everything in between.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I know we'll get into a little bit more detail into that, as I ask you questions, because I know and that was a really quick glimpse into your journey. But I mean, you said 24 years in education and, all of that great stuff that you're doing. And now being in the ed tech space and doing the illustration and all of that. Sometimes I'm very curious, in a lot of ways with the work that you're doing, how you have managed to really blending your passions. I mean, talking about education, the illustrator, the creative component of it, the administrative aspect, and now the ed tech space. How how much into that does just your creative self and your passion for creativity play into those roles, and how does it blend well into those?
Sure. It took a while. It took a while kind of for those things to come out in a sense, because when my first 4, 5, 6 years of teaching, you're still learning how to be a teacher, right? School doesn't necessarily prepare you for that. So you're still just trying to be a good teacher. Like, what is my content? What am I teaching? How do I deliver it? And when I started teaching 2003, technology wasn't really abundant. We still had computer labs. We had Palm Pilots in our district. So my first district I taught in was in Round Rock, Texas. So I'm originally from Texas, so right outside of Austin. That was my first year teaching. So I developed a lot of just being a good teacher, right? And then slowly I started to creep in some things that I was excited about, that I was passionate about, that I felt like made me a good learner, or helped me learn when I was younger. And that kind of incorporated drawing. So I kind of slowly started to incorporate drawing, not really necessarily knowing that it was being creative. It was, for me, it was just kind of how I thought and how I shared and how I learned. Um, so kind of introducing those pieces, and then, 2003, 2004, 5, we're learning about blogging. We're learning about, web 2.0. That's, we're finally able to engage with the technology that exists. So then I started to realize, like, okay, you can start to be creative and express yourself in new ways, but it was still early. Like people were still very hesitant on doing that. So creativity kind of, took a what is the word I'm looking for, or phrase I'm looking for, kind of took a back seat to a lot of what we were doing. And it really wasn't until I got into the EdTech world where I was attending conferences and attending like TCEA and FPTC, and really seeing like, wow, this is really cool. I like this. I don't know what this is, but I like it. It's, it's technology. It's starting to like, I can make stuff, I can build stuff, I can draw stuff. That started to come into play, after about 10 years of being in education. And it was fun. It was fun. I had the opportunity for me was just playing. I get to play with these tools, figure out how they work. By then I had just left the classroom. And so, my job became training teachers on how to use technology. And it really started with Promethean boards. Those were what we had in our district. And in Round Rock, I had, I think like 11 campuses. And that is all I did was train on using Promethean boards. So a lot of drawing, a lot of creating, a lot of making shapes, a lot of making, presentations in Active Inspire. I think that's what it's called, Active Inspire. So that's really where I started to like, kind of in a sense, learn graphic design. And because I'm making stuff and I'm arranging things and I'm putting things on a slideshow. So that's, where I started, and it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I still do. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I started to kind of cut my teeth on being creative in education. We were given some freedoms to not just teach or not just share what was in the curriculum, but kind of expand a little bit. So we really had to have some permission in our districts or in our district to be creative. Again, this was earlier. Now they want us to all be creative, which is great. But early on, you had to be real careful where you put it and where you did it. With kids, because it wasn't proven yet. Really wasn't. It was a new way of thinking with kids. So, yeah, that's kind of where I started. I'm going to keep going too. So eventually, like, after having this role, as an EdTech coach, EdTech coordinator, I thought I wanted to be a leader. So my principal came to me and said, "Hey, I really love what you're doing. You're leading teachers around technology and in the classroom. You should look into being an administrator." And so I went back to school, got my master's to be an administrator. And, in doing it, I was like, I don't get to be creative anymore in a sense like that. I didn't feel like I was creative. I was very a middle school intern as an assistant principal, and you're just dealing with discipline. That's really kind of to be honest about it. You were dealing with a lot of discipline, and I did. I enjoyed seeing kids in different capacities in the office for whatever reason that they were down there. I really enjoyed that, but I really felt like something was missing. I wanted to dive more into that creative stuff that I had already kind of got a taste of. So I went to become an ed tech coach, and that's where I really started to explore tools. And I even tried to blog. I tried to start a blog and, try to share all these things, but it became a lot of work. As like just running a podcast, running a blog, it's a lot of work. Right. And so I was trying to learn to be minimal, but with some of the things that I was creating. Um, but yeah, fast forward to, after doing that for, I don't know, 10 years or so, I started to realize that we were very, very tool heavy, tool specific. Tools were everywhere. When I say tools, I mean like digital tools, whether it was Google, whether it was, gosh, I mean, anything. Mentimeter was one. Poll Everywhere was something that we'd use. We had clickers for different types of boards. And then, Adobe had products. Then Canva came around, and like we had all these things to create. And what I started to notice was that I felt like we were trying to replace kind of being creative with just a tool, and just kind of giving it to kids and saying, go be creative. And I felt like, I don't know if that's the right approach, but you had to strategically go around that. Like I had to, really think, okay, how do I introduce this? And it started, or some of this really came out when kids would visit my room. I had a classroom, not a classroom. I had an office that was a classroom that had all these technology tools. I had everything. I had 3D printers, laser cutters, laser etchers, laptops, GoPros, tripods, everything for kids to create. And I would get kids that would come in for assignments for work. It was at a high school. And, students would come in and ask to borrow something or ask to get a license for, Wii Video or whatever it might have been. And they really didn't know kind of what they were trying to create. It was really kind of this creative block. It was just, we told them to use this tool and they would go to get it. And then there was this creative block. And so I started to draw with kids. I started to draw because that's kind of how I thought. That's just how I naturally think. I think in visuals. And so I would draw ideas that the kids would tell me. I would just, what are you trying to create? Oh, a video. Okay. Well, what do you think that video is going to look like? What do you think that first scene is? What do you think that next scene? How does this going to play out? Basically storyboarding with kids.
Yeah.
So I would do that. I would storyboard with presentations. I would storyboard with videos. We would design or draw out things that they wanted to 3D print. And I started to realize like, yeah, we're not helping them with kind of these ideas that they have and really kind of play with those ideas first before we start to make anything. That's not always necessarily the best way to go about it, but it was a way that I could build some structure around and kind of share that class after class after class. And it was amazing, like watching kids grab markers and start to draw and start to create, the things that they were wanting to make but didn't quite know how was awesome. It was great. And I was excited about it because now I get to draw again. And, I hadn't really been drawing a whole lot other than in my own journals, in my own notebooks kind of thing. And just watching kids really communicate and talk and share and, projects got better. They got a little better. They got a little more thought out. And, that was step one. And hopefully they take this idea of drawing things out, sketching things out simply and apply it to the next project and apply it to the next project because tools are going to change. We're going to have, look at how all the tools that are available to us, they constantly change, they constantly update. And, that kind of thinking with drawing does it. Like you can always use that regardless of what the tool is. You just need to be able to kind of plan things out. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the beginning of all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know, which I could keep going, but
No, 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 that's great, and I love everything that you said, but that kinda leads me to what I wanna ask too, and we'll jump right back into this, but were you, as a kid, as a child, was drawing something that you grew up doing? Or is this something? Because I don't know why, like, I picture you even right now, like, even in a elementary classroom when you were back in the day, or maybe even junior high, and you're just, like, sketching while the teacher's just, like, teaching, you're sketching, but, that's the way that you learned and or the thought process. Because like you said, I sometimes I think in pictures, and I have to, like, jot stuff down, but I see the pictures, but I need to make sure I put them. So I wanna know, and I'm curious, growing up, was drawing something that you grew up doing? And if so, like, who inspired you to draw? How did that come about?
yeah, I was definitely that kid. I drew a lot. And I would say, I was encouraged to do that. I was very much encouraged. And I owe a lot of credit to my Aunt Nora, my aunt that lived two houses over. She had three kids. So we had three cousins. There was me, my other cousin Carlos, and we would always go to my Aunt Nora's house. And so she had to manage all of us. And, we all kind of ranged in ages, but probably like, 5 or 6 year span. And so we didn't have technology. We had a video games kind of thing, but she was always wanting us to make stuff. Um, so I owe it to her a lot of why just doing things with my hands, whether it's drawing or cutting paper up and creating things with construction paper. It was really her that kind of introduced some of those skills to us or those ideas. And then definitely my mom and my dad who just encouraged me to keep doing it. So I took that to, as growing up as a kid, and then it would trickle into the classroom and I loved it. I loved drawing. I loved art. Yeah, as I got older, I didn't necessarily make the connection that, I'm thinking and I'm drawing or I'm learning and I'm drawing. I just drew. And it was, helping me learn or memorize things. And sometimes it was just helping me focus. So as I got older and notes got more intensive, or I'm actually listening to lectures or teachers speak, I would just doodle in the margins. And I come across adults all the time, like, oh, that was totally me. I was drawing that S in the corner and then I was shading things in. And yeah, that's what and sometimes it would just be to focus because, my mind would race or I'd be thinking about something else and that would help me just kind of calm myself a little bit to listen to what's going on. So, yeah, it was just always something that was encouraged as a kid, and never talked down until you started talking about, a career. Like you were never going to do that as a career, draw or be an artist because you don't make any money. You're a struggling artist. So it was always just like a hobby that was, encouraged. So, yeah, whether it was drawing on a desk even, I was even telling some kids the other day, I used to carve. We used to have wooden desks. So I would carve in the back of the desk in front of me. So it was just always expressing art, draw. I took all the art classes in high school and middle school. Well, middle school you take them, but I try to take them in high school. So yeah, it's always been who I was in some way. Again, I don't think I made the connection that I was learning until, you know, towards the end of high school, definitely college. I started to realize like this helps me learn. It's no longer an artistic expression. It's now, okay, it's helping me memorize things and remember things.
Hey, educators, ready for a game changer? I've partnered up with Goose Chase to revolutionize learning through play. This amazing platform helps students grasp key concepts, engage in epic challenges, and feel the thrill of discovery. From classroom scavenger hunts to district wide adventures, Goose Chase turns education into an unforgettable journey. Join the movement that's making learning fun again. Visit www.myedtech.live/myedtech10 and use code myedtech10 for 10% off any license purchase, whether it's individual, school, or district. Click the link in the show description and let's make education exciting together with Goose Chase. Yeah. But that's a great, and like you were describing too, one thing that I love that you mentioned, and I've seen it firsthand too as well, while being in the classroom and working on projects, how important it is that you mentioned there's so many tools available already that we think like, oh yeah, we want all our students to create and we want them to be creators and not consumers and so on. But sometimes I think it's like, well, I mean, they're consuming the tech like crazy, and really it's like, where's the creativity? Sometimes it's and I get it that they're creating something, they're speaking, whether they're doing a podcast or whether they're doing a presentation and things of that sort. But sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, and actually I mentioned earlier in the previous podcast, and I often say it a lot, I always loved allowing or my students to lead with the tech. It's not what I wanted them to use because, as you mentioned TCEA and everybody goes there and everybody comes back and they bring all the tools and they just want to throw them at the students immediately that Monday or whenever it is that they come back. We're using this, and that. But wait a minute, is that the right tool for that student at that time? Did you plan appropriately? And it just seems like, hey, we just want to throw it at them. But on the other side, like you mentioned, being able to kind of stop a little bit and let's go ahead and put markers to butcher paper or
Mhm.
or paper or anything and just really plan things out. I think that's where the true creative process comes about. And really in that planning, like you mentioned, it could be either that storyboarding or just simple note taking, just writing some scripts. And I remember seeing that firsthand in my fifth grade, sixth grade classrooms when we were working on unit projects or whether it was for social studies, for math, for science, and having them actually do the collaboration, the communication, and all those skills, and then finally taking that and then choosing what medium you feel most comfortable with and go ahead and share and create that way. And I think that's something that's very powerful that I wanted to come back to that you mentioned because like I said, oftentimes it's the tool becomes the star as opposed to the students. And like you said, there's overwhelming amount of tools. So now, seeing, well, actually, let me ask at this time, what is your current role?
So my role now is I full time do manual draws. So that is my business. That is what I run. And everything I do is consulting work. So I will partner with different companies, different schools, whomever, and work with them on the things that I was doing as a teacher, as an ed tech coach, as an ed tech coordinator. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. I've been blessed to have been in a lot of environments and and present myself, present opportunities for people to partner with me. And it finally got to a point where I'm like, I can do this on my own. I don't have to kind of side hustle, side gig this. And it's been great. So yeah, I don't have an official title, I guess, but yeah, manual draws. That's the business I have. And I get to do all of those things for a variety of people. Not just education, which has been a kind of a fun path to take
Mhm.
uh, with this company.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
but
great because I wanted to, we'll talk a little bit about that. But like you mentioned, being able to go through that journey, and then of course the drawing process, and what that has allowed you to do now, and the doors that have been open. Still a teacher at heart, because like you said, you do a lot of wonderful collaborations, and I see you post often where, hey, I'm going to be at this conference and I'm going to be at this conference. And it's just amazing to be able to see how something that you started off with at such a young age, thanks to your aunt, and then of course the support of your parents, and now you've taken that to the next level. And I find that truly inspiring, because, in a different medium, like for example, this podcast, to just be able to be on consistently for 4 years, 300 some episodes, like you mentioned, it's something that's not easy, but it's something that we get to do and that we love to do. And then we get to marry this with our either current work and things of that sort, that creative component. And for me, this is essentially my creative outlet, and kind of like what people say, like self care. Like, although this may be work for me, this fills my bucket. This is what, and so I would imagine that, what you do and what you got to do through the education space, and even now through Manuel Draws is, something that fills your bucket. So I want to ask you now, as far as your creative juices and amplifying your own creativity, how does the process work for you, on the day in and day out, now that it has become, like you mentioned, a job? You know, do you, how how do you kind of still keep that fire there, and just that passion for what you're
Sure.
doing?
Yeah, I think it's the opportunities that present themselves that allow me to continue to fill my bucket, to continue to be motivated, to do something else or to continue doing what I do. So, the day in and the day out might be whether I'm on a podcast or whether I'm drawing for a client or whether I'm doing a professional development for someone or some kind of training or workshop. You're kind of always, I like to talk to people. So I may be presenting to you on something, but I want to talk to you. Like, what do you like? What is something that interests you, even though it has nothing to do with what we might be doing at hand, like the task we're doing. Maybe I'm training you on an interactive whiteboard, but I'm going to go and talk to you about you. And I think that motivates me because I want to hear what people enjoy doing, because I hope that people can find be excited about what they do or what they love or a hobby, and just in conversation. I want them to be like, well, add that to what you do somehow. Like if you love needle pointing or you love, cooking, how can you incorporate that? And it's just good conversation, because I think this idea of creativity, it comes from creating something pretty, and it's not, it can be anywhere. And so that motivates me, because then I learn about a new topic. I learn about a new passion. I learn about a new subject. I learn about something else besides what's in my sphere of being, everyday manual draws and everyday dad and everyday family member. So it kind of expands that. And that allows, again, more opportunity for me to expand. So not only, I was saying, not only my education, but I've had a chance to work with marketing teams. I've had the chance to work with UX designers. I've had the chance to work with other artists and other industries. And so it's really cool. It just, that's new. How do I capture that and somehow, or how do I contribute my skills to that? So, because you can easily get, pretty stagnant in what you do if you're not careful. And that's not bad. And if that's where you kind of want to be, but I feel like that's not me. I want to continue to be excited about what I do. And I want to continue to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, man, I get to go work with these UX designers. I've never done that before. Like, how does that, I want to be excited about that. And
Yeah.
so that helps. It's cool. It's a cool thing to do because you expand outside of education. It also increases your self-value or your self-worth, because sometimes I know I had, first you deal with imposter syndrome for sure all the time. Everybody does. And I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into just education. I love education. That is where I am, K-12. Well, I love you always. But it's kind of cool to see where else I fit, where else I work. And I don't try to make myself fit. I just try to see, is a potential it. And so that keeps that keeps my creativity going now. Like that motivates me. So
Yes. I
yeah, so
love that. That is
I'm
wonderful,
you
Manuel, because that's something that's great. Like, it's just you being you, but then obviously opportunities will come and present themselves, and then you learn something new. And I think very you and I very similar in that thought process, you know. But going back to what we talked a little bit about creativity and really just being able to talk to people, you know, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to do several Adobe Creativity Institutes working alongside Claudio, and we'll go and visit. And you know, for me, one of the things that I love, and although people they come, the teachers they come, and it's like, okay, I'm giving up a Saturday to do this, to learn, to get my level one, level two, learning some of the platform and all that stuff. But one thing that I love is I just really say like, hey, like today it's all about you. Like I don't want you to think like, hey, like this is what you're gonna have to go back and do on Monday. And I love talking to them and putting them at ease to say like, hey, today is about you expressing your creativity. I want to learn about you. Obviously, this is something that's going to transfer over in your classroom in a way that is going to be conducive to your content. But today I want you to harness your inner creativity, maybe the things that you never get to share. And I think, like you mentioned, it's so important because although I'm there and we're discussing the platform, but you're seeing these wonderful educators creating, you know, on topics that they really. I had an institute where I went where there was this young lady who was all about dress designing and wedding design. And one of the things was, you know, you need to create your own book cover, you know, on something that you're passionate about. And she did such a phenomenal job. And I was just like, wow, but it's from her, it's from her
Sure.
heart. She's passionate about. And then seeing the educators do that. And I think sometimes it's so hard for, like you mentioned, you know, sometimes as a teacher, this is our identity. This is what we do. I'm just here to learn so I can know what I'm going to tell my students on Monday. But to really like open
Mhm.
up and really put themselves in those shoes to say, hey, what can I create for myself? And for me, I tell them like, this is 8 hours of just, you know, what is it, self care that you're here.
Yep.
Yes, you're learning this, but you're going to tell me a little bit about you and you're going to learn about me while we're here. And it's just been phenomenal that the connections that you make with these educators. And I think that's so important to teachers to still know like, hey, it's okay. You are creative. Bring your passions into the classroom. It's okay to share and, you know, be a little vulnerable with your students and sharing some things that you've created and so on and build that, you know, classroom community. And so that's one thing that I absolutely love, but also the opportunities that it does give you, like you mentioned, and for myself too, through the podcast and through these institutes. But I mean, it's so great, and I love it. That so that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I like
Cool.
interesting,
Even
you
when
know?
you share with them and you ask them questions, you're also teaching them, well, how do I do this with kids? What exactly what we're doing right here? I'm asking you about you and I want you to
Right.
so you kind of help them create if they're someone who struggles with that. How do I talk to kids? How do I get kids to use Adobe or how do I get kids to use something else like this, like what we're doing right here, giving them permission to kind of express themselves and play and or work on something they're passionate about. I think that helps teach them how to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's especially if you have them there for 8 hours or however long. I'm not here just to teach you the tool. I'm here to kind of just get to know you too, and that helps. And I don't know, it brings some joy when you take up somebody's time, especially if they're going to dedicate that much in an afternoon. It's not just about clicking here and there. It's always about just relationships. I teach my own kids that it's all about relationships, build
Yeah.
relationships with people, get to know people, love people, enjoy people because everybody is different. And, um, you know, for sure. So yeah, I think we definitely have similar feelings on how we
Yeah.
approach creativity and where it comes from.
Yeah. Now I wanted to ask you too, because this is something that I know I mean, we all battle with. I think it's consistent, but not as strong anymore. You know, just you kind of learn through it and so on. But you mentioned imposter syndrome. So I want to ask you, you know, because I know with my creativity journey and kind of just, you know, going not just focusing on the classroom, but also just being creative and just really putting myself out there. At the very beginning, it wasn't very easy at all whatsoever. And I mean, you have some harsh people sometimes that you're like, oh, like maybe like this is scary, like putting yourself out there. And then of course you see people like, you know, like the Claudios, like you, and then you see Al Thomas too. Like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of his and Claudio and you and a lot of other creators. And you're like, oh man, like I want to put something out, but I'm not at that level and things of that sort and understanding those things. So I want to ask you, in your journey, now that you've had the opportunities that these doors have opened up for you to collaborate with, in the education space, not in the education space, you know, how have you learned to overcome imposter syndrome?
Oh man, it's taken a while, and it still creeps in here and there with different things. I think I think I surrounded myself with people who encouraged me. I think that was helpful. I don't know if that was just I'm fortunate to have been in a circle already of really good people, but even along the way, I've kind of tried to add more people to kind of my sphere, and those people encourage me. It's like, you can create something, whether it's a podcast, a video, or a drawing, and you're going to be your worst critic, right? We're always our worst critic. But when somebody else sees it, it's just a different lens, a different perspective. And I need them to be my hype people, right? I need them to be my hype man and say, what you did was great and great, awesome. Keep telling me that because I need that reassurance. And kind of through that process, I also learned that for my instance, when it is art or something I'm drawing or maybe a workshop I'm creating, that it's okay to have that initial draft of whatever it is. And I teach this with kids, have that initial draft, that initial idea, whatever it might be in its loose form, in a very loose form, because then you can build on it. It doesn't have to be polished as soon as you make it. That's not necessarily always how it works. It's just getting it out there. So whether it's my first draft and I'm showing it, or it's my first version and I'm showing it, I've learned to take the feedback, and that's taking time too, because constructive feedback isn't always fun. You know, um, when I was in college, I took an art class and I got critiqued for the first time, and I was like, I do not like this feeling at all. This is not a fun feeling. Um, but I learned to work through it. So surrounding yourself with with good people that are going to encourage you and give you that confidence, because your self talk isn't always going to be there. It's not always going to be, positive, reinforcement for yourself. That helped. I had some artists that were, again, just fortunate enough to have some artists in my life, fortunate enough to have some designers in my life, and fortunate enough to have educators in my life, that would give me what I needed, to continue pushing. Because I think without that, yes, it would be hard. If I'm an individual and I don't necessarily have that, I don't know, seek those things out, attend events, attending ISTE, attending TCA, attending these big EdTech conferences, helped. That helped me with, kind of having an audience to give me that feedback and then me making intentional connections with, I think that person could help me, that's a skill in itself of like, not a skill, but a confidence thing of like, I'm going to go talk to this person that I don't know. I don't really know, but I think they would be helpful in my career. And I think I could help them as well. So doing that, networking, is huge.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing this in isolation, not having that. Like you mentioned that, Claudio, like I've known Claudio for years, and, just watching him and getting, some reciprocation from him, and just watching him and knowing that we started off as educators, but yet we had passions and we kind of just grew those. We kind of just put those out there, and that helps too. How, seeing other people do it,
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. No,
Let's
I
give me
really, yeah, I agree with you. That definitely does help. I mean, for myself, I guess, I don't know, just growing up an only child, it was just very interesting because it was just me, and so, like, anything you do, it's like, well, your mom thinks it's the greatest thing in the world, but then when you share it with other people, yeah, it may not be, they may have a different interpretation of things and so on,
Sure.
but, going back and starting into my social media journey and just being able to learn and be inspired by educators like yourself and, like I mentioned, Claudio and Al and people that are putting this stuff out, and then so I said, okay, like I want to learn how to do this and put it out there. It was just amazing to really see that community that all of a sudden they would put a like, or all of a sudden they connect, all of a sudden they follow. And like you mentioned, I think one of the things that helped me out the most is once I reached out to somebody that I did follow and just to simply ask a question, to get a response from them thinking like, "No, no, like, they're way too big, like, they're never gonna say anything," but then hearing back from them and then all of a sudden connecting, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're like the nicest people in the world," and that really has made a huge difference, and finding that community, of people that will support you, that love what you do, that are always there to just cheer you on because they definitely want to see you succeed. Definitely plays a big role. And, like I mentioned, Claudio has been, and Al have been instrumental for me. Like Al has helped me out tremendously on for my podcasting and camera setups, and Claudio too. And it's just been great to have people around that. But I also wanted to talk about that piece too for myself, seeing you on social media and then, going back to, what you were posting and things. Oftentimes, and just so we can talk to teachers about this or anybody,
Mhm.
you know, what you're seeing on social media is actually the hours of work, and it's that finished, polished product. It didn't always start off that way. So I think on many educators and many people, that imposter syndrome sets in because it's like, oh no, look what Manuel drew. I mean, no, there's no way that I can do that. Like, I mean, look at him. For him, it's very easy. But going back to the hours and hours of work and practice and iteration and all of that, you're seeing that final polished product. So I think it's always great to show even some of the, like you said, show the initial drawings, show how the planning process, so they understand like, hey, this is something that maybe I'm capable of too as well if I just continue at it and practicing. And that really, when I saw that, I was like, oh, so your podcast come out perfect right away the first time, like, and now that I'm in it, I'm like, oh yeah, no, it doesn't come out perfect the first
I know. Kudos to you, man. I don't like, I know there's got to be so much work that goes
time.
into it for you to dedicate. I mean, just have that time to do it. It's amazing that, and I'm sure now you've just gotten more efficient. And so it is quicker now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think social media is definitely a double-edged sword because you do see the amazing things that we create. And I felt like for a long time, and probably need to go back and do more of it. I would post the ugly of it, or the kind of the initial sketches or the initial thinking, or just because I know that's what I need to see in order to maybe like kind of go in that direction with what somebody's creating. Like, where did you start? Like, what does that first thing look like initially? Because that also helps. Like, oh, okay, it's a little more attainable now. And it's up to me, how much I'm going to put into it into as to how good it's going to come out. But yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You can easily, you know, just be like, give up. You can easily like, I can never do that, because it's, did it pretty quickly. But no, man, it takes a lot of time to get to that point. So yeah, definitely I do like seeing that, and I need to post probably more of that, uh, just that process side of it. Cause I teach it. I teach the kids. Like it's the process. We're not getting to pretty just yet. We're getting to just getting the idea out. So
Love it.
I think
Well, Manuel, it's been an amazing conversation. But before we wrap up and we end with the last three shows, I want to ask you, this is something new that I'm doing and I just started it. So, you're only the second person they get to ask this is, I want to leave my audience members, any educators that are out there, non educators, people that are just really maybe want to tap in a little bit more into their creativity. What would be three actionable steps that you might share with them to just go for it. Go and start their journey and not feel, overwhelmed.
yeah, I mean, for me, I'm gonna have to, do it from the perspective of as an artist, or an illustrator or somebody who creates. Is you I want to say you got to dedicate time, but it's even hard to dedicate time. But I would say the materials that you want to work with, whether it's, a camera, a video, you want to take some pictures, or maybe I want to draw pictures, and I'm grabbing this because like just have those materials readily available to you. So when you do have a moment to stop. Don't scroll social media. Don't get on your phone, but go and kind of just play with whatever it is that you think that you love, that you enjoy. Just take time to play with it. And enjoy it a little bit. I like, I'm old school, Gen X, Gen Xers. I like the tangible things. So like having a journal always, close by is kind of nice. That would be probably my first step. The second is to um, you know, follow the people that inspire you. Keep tabs on them. I know I just told you not to get on social media, but keep watching what they're doing, keep getting motivated. And then, I think the last step is probably do something that's uncomfortable and see what happens. A safe uncomfortable, because I know uncomfortable can be hard. And I say that kind of in a sense of, I'm kind of dabbling in other industries and where I fit. And that just helps my creative thinking because now it's the unknown. And so now I have to think outside of what I do. I have to research that new thing and see where those fit. Um, that's a pretty big step, but I think do something a little uncomfortable that incorporates what it is you're trying to be creative with, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a video, cameras, taking photos, drawing, you know, needle pointing. I'm saying that just, I don't know why I'm saying needle pointing, but, yeah, like just take those things and push them a little bit. But do it. You have to do it. You just have to. Um, you and I have been fortunate enough to be able to dabble and have full-time jobs. We have full-time jobs and we're able to dabble and make those two worlds meet and it kind of leads to bigger, better things. But, if you can do it right now in a safe space where it's not costing you too much money and you're not, losing money, yeah, try it. I mean, it just depends on what your goals are. If it's just creative outlet, just for your own sanity, great. If it's a creative outlet that you want to explore to potentially make money or to potentially be a business, um, only do what you love. Don't branch out too much. Don't get too scary with it until you're ready. But yeah, I mean, those are probably terrible steps. But I'm trying to think of from my own experience. That's what worked for me. Uh, and take one of those and do it. And surround yourself. I know this is for surround yourself with people. Surround yourself with people that are going to be kind of like-minded in that I want to grow. I want to be better. I want to do some really cool stuff. Um, because, I've definitely been involved in networks and circles that promote that and push that. And from honest people, I also don't want anybody to just tell me it's great to tell me it's great. I want, really authentic feedback on those things.
Love it. Great, great steps. Manuel, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Well, as we wrap up, we always love to end the show with the following three questions. And I hopefully you did get a chance to see them. They were there in the calendar invite. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here. So, okay, Manuel, as we know, every superhero has a weakness or a pain point. And we know for Superman, kryptonite was that pain point for him. So I want to ask you, Manuel, in the current state of education, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
I would say current and probably ongoing is chasing the tools. It's overwhelming. It can be hard and it can be a big downer. Find what works for you and use it and continue to use those ed tech tools, to their fullest capability because, there's always gonna be something that's gonna be better. There's always gonna be something, especially with AI. Oh my gosh. I wouldn't say AI, but it's hard. It's hard because then we start to, well, this is gonna make it more efficient. So then we just add more stuff to our plate. So that doesn't really solve the idea of efficiency. So find what works for you, use it, and kind of just stay in that world just as much as you can. I know we're supposed to teach kids other things, and but that's been my kryptonite. Is just it's hard to keep up with everything. Now I sound old. Now I sound like the teachers that I was trying to, no, this whiteboard is amazing. These iPads are awesome. But find what works. You don't need that big of a toolbox. So that was probably my kryptonite for a long time. It was exhausting. It was as a tech coach, I just couldn't keep up. It was just so hard.
All right. Great, great answer. All right. Question number two. If you could, what was the question? Sorry. Let me rephrase that. I lost in my train of thought. Okay. If you could trade places with someone for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh, a multilingual world traveler. I mean, the world is amazing, and I've had the opportunity to travel with the work that I do internationally, especially things that come to mind. I would love to do that. I would love to be somebody who just gets to travel, like gets to see and experience the world because it is so vast. And if you're not careful, your kind of bubble, is just your bubble. And I think it gives us perspective for a lot of different reasons, whether it's cultural, whether it's political, whether it's, your just love of people understand, it just expands that. And when you can see we're pretty small, we're pretty small in this world. So, yeah, that's what I would do if I could. Oh, somebody who just travels. I don't want to work. I just want to try. I just want to travel.
Love
So yeah.
All right. All right. And my last question to you is If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Oh, don't be a jerk. I would just have that. Don't be a jerk. Don't be insert whatever you want to insert there. But yeah, man. I mean, this is maybe because I'm getting older. I don't know. But yeah, it's just, it's harder to be mean and ugly. I think it's harder to do those things than it is to just be nice, kind, and listen. And, I'm definitely guilty. I'm sure. Yes. I've honked a horn or two, when I drive, but just being kind. I think everybody sees that. Kids see that. Adults see that. Everybody sees that. It's just not worth it. We're going to get to where we're going to get. We're going to answer that text when we get to that text. There's just no reason to be mad and angry about things. I don't think. I think maybe it's just me. Maybe that's my own, you know, experience of having what I had from when I was younger to this point. And I know that being a jerk would not have got me from where I was as a kid to where I am now. And being mean and ugly and yeah, I think that's what I would put on a billboard. Don't be a jerk. Maybe some other words, but that would be where I would start. Just be nice. Like you said, like the people that you talk to, they're so nice. There's just so much to learn and give when you're just nice. Um, Maybe that's
Excellent.
my rose colored glasses kind of thing, but it's worked. It's worked for me and I enjoy being nice. So
Perfect. Great answer. Well, Manuel, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to, just sit here, talk with me, and hear a little bit about your journey, your passions, and really your heart. Thank you so much for everything that you do and what you contribute to the education space. Keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate everything you post. And of course, like I said, you're definitely one of the people that I have looked up to, in the past and even now to just help see things differently, maybe try new things or just to feel inspired. So thank you for what you do. I really appreciate it. And for all our audience members, thank you as always for your continued support. We really appreciate all, like I mentioned, all the likes, shares, the follows. And if you haven't followed us yet on social media, please make sure you follow us at My EdTech Live. And again, like I mentioned, if you haven't jumped over to YouTube, make sure you jump over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to visit our website where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 302 episodes of My EdTech Life. You can visit us at www.myedtech.life, where I guarantee you will find an episode just for you where you can take some knowledge nuggets and sprinkle them onto what you are already doing great. So, as always, thank you for all of your support. And until next time, my friends, don't forget, stay techie.